Well, I'm back in my corner again just for a few videos here. Um, I started, I decided because this was a new book and because I had not read it before, but because I knew what happened and because it's considered a prequel and because I like to read books in order for the character progression, as the characters grow, as the story proceeds, I decided I would start with this one. And it it I expected a sad ending, and we sort of got one. But what really shook me was the last chapter. It was a present day thing. So we're gonna go back and we're gonna go read the whole series. She's going off again. Every time I do a podcast. So we're gonna go back and we're gonna read the entire series in order, in progression order, but we're gonna start with the prequel. So those of you who I should back up and say, welcome to the D. Louise book series. It's nice to meet you. My name is Christina, K-R-S-T-I-N-A. This is where we read books and talk books. And no special effects going on here, no theme music or any of that fancy schmancy stuff that all the other channels have. It's just me talking books. And there was very little. Oh, let me get back to it. Darius, J.R. Ward, Darius, the prequel. And I'm anxious to get to my reread of Dark Lover, where the series originally starts. Here is Dark Lover. I also, as you know or don't know, I'm a huge audiobook. And is this the guy? Does it say his name? I don't see it. But the guy that does the books, or eventually does the books, he also does the Sinister books, which is just weird. But so we're gonna start with Darius, J.R. Ward's Darius, and then we're gonna go into Dark Lover, and Eternal Lover, and Lover Awakened, and Lover Revealed, Lover Unbound, Lover Enshrined, Lover Avenged, Lover Mine, Lover Unveiled, Lover Reborn, Lover at Last, and the King, and the Shadow, and the Beast, and the Chosen, and so on. We're going to go through them all. So I hope you will tune in for those videos. We'll be every so many days. We're going through Victoria Thompson's Gaslight series. We also have This End Friday afternoons. If you like this author, then maybe you'll like that author. I just recently did, or will be doing, Reporters. We started with the Bridgertons. If you like the Bridgertons, then maybe you'll like the Mallorys, Catherine Coulter Sherbrooke, Joanna Lindsay's Mallory's, and a whole bunch of other ones. So please check that out. Also check out Flashback Mondays, where we talk about 30 different authors, different books, different genres: historical romance, mystery, sci-fi, contemporary romance, Harlequin, paranormals, all of my paranormals. So please stay tuned. So as you know, or if you don't know, I have over 700 videos out there, and every single one of them is spoilers. Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of spoilers. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert. Just to let you know. I should get one of those. The podcast has one of those game things. Would you stop, you're shaking my computer. She's rubbing herself all over my computer, and it's so. Excuse me for the shake. I'm sorry. Come on, little girl. So, Darius. So I'm giving spoilers. Lots of spoilers. Keep in mind that this book is a whole spoiler, and this video will contain tons and tons and tons of spoilers. And I want you to know, don't find the sheet where I wrote it, but it gave me some chills. It gave me some little chills. So that's what we're doing here, and it did give me some chills. So we're starting in 1981. Darius is the son of Thor. Now, the first chapter or the prologue gives you most of. Oh, I like she has a book. I have it here someplace, but she gives all the terms, and you really don't get these too much. You don't really need these till the next couple books. But the introduction says quite a bit of it and spoils, like tells you the whole book almost in the introduction. My name is Darius, son of Mark Lon. I was sired of the Black Dagger brother Terror, and born in 1618 by the human calendar. I died in 2005. If I had a gravestone, those would be the sum of my identity deceptors and the numerical fences that corralled the events of my life upon the earth. They are at once the most essential details of my autobiography, but also the least significant things you will know of me. And he says he keeps records, and I'm wondering why Wrath and the rest of them, and Vicious and Tor and Wellesley and all those don't know about the records. I bet the Scribe Virgin. Now, if you don't know who the Scribe Virgin, she is the leader of the race up in heaven, and she provides all the females for the guys to feed on to get their blood from until they get their mates, and then even then, some of the guys need to have the chosen. And so Darius is the guy that's taking care of the King Wrath, and you don't see him. He's talked about quite a bit, but he's off stage in this book. I have some authors that if it happens on the page, then it happens on stage. But if you're told about it, like, oh, this happened last week, then that's considered off stage. So most of Wrath, if not all of Wrath, is off stage. So most of Wrath happens off stage. Let me share with you the most important sentences. When I first when I first met her, I did not know she would be my one true love. When I fell in love with her, I did not know she would bear me a daughter on her deathbed. When I died more than 20 years later, it would be while trying to save the life of our young. On a rainy night, when the tears I could no longer shed fell from a disinterested Caldwell sky. Those are the real details of me. And so he meets Anne, and he has just bought this brand new souped up BMW. Oh, and we meet Fritz. Fritz is the butler. He loves his job. He lives and breathes his job. He will live and breathe his job in every single book, in every single one of them. Fritz will be there, done that, been there, whatever you need, sire. Cook you gourmet meals up the yin yang. He is one of the key core characters that holds the world together. He loves to serve them all, and he helps them out. So Darius has just bought a BMW, and he's so excited about this BMW, and he's going to go out and drive it and wrap it around a tree. Drove it to 5 miles and wrapped it around a tree. Annie, her name is Patricia Worcester, but she prefers to go by Annie. And she is running away from her boyfriend. She was conned. She did not know that he was married, and there were some significant issues with there. So, he they he he's escaped. She's running away from the boyfriend. She runs out to the middle of the street and gets hit by Darius by the car, and then he wraps it around the tree. But of course, being the vampire that he is, he's fine. Little bruises here and there, but he's fine. And he gets out of the car and sees Annie and grabs a taxi and flags down a taxi, takes control of the driver's mind, and they go to the hospital. And I just love this little tidbit because it's just because I lived through these TV shows. I lived through these authors, and it kind of gave me a little tear. So we'll get to it. What was that guy from Taxi doing driving her anywhere? I'm not Danny freaking DeVito, Jesus. Guess she'd spoken that out loud. The guy snapped his head forward. Why the hell does everybody say that? I'm better looking than. As he worked out his ego problems in the front seat, Annie glanced over at the. All of her thoughts stopped, and not like a train that gradually slowed down. Her recognition slammed into a brick wall. Talk about better looking than. The man on the other side of the bench seat was worthy of the cover of a Joanna Lindsay novel. And it gave me a little tear because Joanna, I love my Mallorys, and that series wasn't long enough for me. It needed to be massively longer, but Joanna kind of stopped it. I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It's 12 books, but the core is like nine books, and the present is my favorite because the whole family gets together. But I love my James Mallory and Hills Bells and the whole gang. It's a great little series if you're interested in the Regency. But because Joanna Lizzie died many years ago, and it just I loved her books, and she had really long hair too. So that I just loved her books, and it just brought me a little tear to my eye because I knew Joanna had passed. So then Darius takes her to the hospital via the Danny DeVito taxi, and they have a lot of getting to know you romantic relationship angst. And then he also, the whole time they're in the hospital, Darius has been holding the taxi. So the taxi guy takes her back to the scene of the crime, and she picks up some of her personal items and make sure she gets home, and Darius follows her to make sure that the taxi guy takes her home safely. Then the next day, later that night, Darius does a number on the ex. And then the next day, she goes back to her ex, and he had taken her credit cards and her identification and her money. And she goes back to him the next day and gets all that stuff back. So Darius, we have one of the small conversations in regards to Wrath, even though we don't never see him on stage like I previously said. But they refer to the person in the other room, Wrath, son of Wrath, the last purebred vampire on Earth, the heir to what was under his tenure the unclaimed throne of the species, lay fully clothed and face down across the king-size bed, his long black hair a shroud that covered his face. He was so tall that his lower legs hung free of the side, and there he is spread out, and they talk about it. The war with the lessening, sadly pallid, soulless killers had gone on far too long. The vampire community struggling to survive against the Omega's legion of slayers. The Black Dagger Brotherhood, their first and only line of defense, and Wraith had clearly found a fight or two before crashing over the day. The baby powder smell of the enemy's blood saturated the chamber's air, but that wasn't the only scent. Wrath had been freshly injured. And they talk about Marissa, and just very briefly, but Marissa is uh, Haver's sister, I believe, and she's a nurse. I believe she's a nurse. I'll have to go back and check them. We'll meet them later. But Haver's come and treats Darius later, and he really doesn't get the full intro. So that's going on. So they talk about race, but we never actually see him on stage. So Annie is trying to find him and locate Darius. She wants to talk to him. She wants to know who he was. So she's calling all the towing companies in town, trying to figure out who towed his car. But obviously, Fritz took care of that, and there's no record anywhere. And while she's doing all this, Darius shows up at her house, and they have grilled cheese sandwiches, well, not grilled cheese, buttered bread and tomato soup sandwiches, and it's just the most best meal of his life. And they have those awkward romance conversations, the getting to know you type situation. Annie goes into work the next day, and her boss invites her into the office. She's never, ever, ever had a conversation with the CFO before, no, CEO. And she's got a little nervous. He goes in, he offers her $1,000, and she doesn't know what this is about. So she's like, oh, she doesn't need the money, blah, blah, blah. Later on, it's explained to her by one of her co-workers that they need her to sign a release, and they're giving her the $1,000 to sign the release so the company won't get sued, because it's revealed that her boyfriend did all this stuff, and if it was known that they had hired the boyfriend without doing a thorough background of his checkground and knowing all this other stuff that went on, blah, 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 they'd be blamed. But she turns them down the first time. Then that later that evening, the whole book takes place in an extremely short period of time. I don't even think it's a week. So he invites her over for dinner at his house, and they've not moved into the big mansion as of yet, I don't think, because this doesn't sound like the mansion, because the mansion is encased in fog and all this kind of stuff, and Annie takes a taxi there. So I don't think it's the full-on thing yet. I'm almost positive it gets established in here. He has her over for dinner, and they have pigs in the blanket as their appetizer because he wants to give her a meal that she would enjoy. And while she's there, she passes the hallway, and this was one of those important things that will predict the future type situation, which we know is here. Her thumb passed over the engraved heading that spelled that Rath's royal lineage in the old language. The listing of the father of the father of the father, going back generations, and yet the symbols were all the same because all the kings of the species had been named Rath. The same sequence was tattooed on the inside of the current Rath's forearms, with the females of the bloodline also included, and one link and the next. Darius saw the flesh rather than the paper. Back when he'd been younger and more idealistic, he'd known with certainty that all the kings would carry that name, that the destroyer prophecy would be fulfilled and the lesser and their evil master eliminated, that his generation of the Black Dagger Brotherhood would finally usher in a peaceful future, that their hard graft in the war would be rewarded with a victory earned under the honor and the legacy of the brave dead, as well as the courage and the commitment of the living. It had been a long time since he believed any of that fantasy. Now he saw not just a king who would not lead, but no more kings ever. There was no possibility of any offspring to come from the current Wrath, because the thought that he was promised unto a female of worth, he refused to lie with her, and with him ending the most important bloodline of them all. It was not hard to extrapolate that there was no future for the race, and then there were the problems within the Brotherhood. There was no cohesion among its current members, no coordination of effort, no way to get back up if needed. Therefore, the era of what had been the best line of defense against the enemy wasn't winning the war with the lessening society. Hell, they weren't even holding ground. They were losing. And we will fix or start to fix in this. And so then Darius gets called away. Vicious shows up out of the blue. I didn't realize that Vicious was in the story this early, but I guess he is because he's here. And they talk about wrath a little bit in the abstract, and Vicious interrupts. He's found a lessening society headquarters, and they need to go take care of the situation. A situation erupts there, and Darius gets injured and he's unable to teleport back. So Fritz has to go pick him up in the van, and when he comes back, he's all hurt, and they have issues there. And while he's away, she has a cute moment. She plays gin rummy with Fritz. Then we have an extremely important piece of literature that foretells the entire future. She never actually gets a chance to tell Darius until it's, well, she doesn't tell Darius. Darius has no clue that this conversation occurred. And we know, we the readers know what happened here. And please stay tuned to the next video with this, because I'm going to go right into this tonight. So it might be 2 days in a row with Black Dagger, because I really want to get started with this one. But I wasn't going to do that without this one. The last chapter blew me, so I'm a little off. So I need to go back and go through them all, and then come back and read the last chapter again, because it just over. So she's walking around the house, and she meets the scribe virgin. She doesn't know who the scribe virgin is. She has no clue who the scribe virgin is, but she meets her. That we know. We, the reader, knows who this woman is. She doesn't introduce herself or anything. She just talks to Annie. Draped in head to toe black robes with a face that was completely covered. And I could have sworn the scribe virgin wore white, but maybe that's later. Whoever it was didn't have feet, at least not that Annie could see. Instead, it seemed to be floating on a bright white energy source that poured out from beneath the hem of the fall of midnight fabric. Annie should have been terrified, but she was not. Somehow it was impossible to be afraid, as strange as the whatever it was. Hello, she whispered. As if summoned, her feet moved of her own volition, carrying her across the floor to the lovely flower-scented room. Her involuntary promenade halting just inside the carved arches of the ladies' parlor. Greetings, a female voice in her head. My name is Anne, she fumbled for no good reason. Yes, it is, the figure confirmed. Who are you? No questions. I do not entertain inquiries of any sort. Sorry, Anne cleared her throat. And I? Well, she didn't know what to say if she couldn't ask anything, so she just shut the hell up. Clearly this was a dream. Maybe the whole night was a dream. Either way, she knew deep down in her conscience that the figure standing hovering before her was a foundational mystery, something godlike and powerful, something that defied explanation to such a degree that there was no reason to try to put words to the definition or existence. He has had a crisis of faith, the figure announced telepathically, in his heart and his soul, and he is important to me. He keeps them all together, you see. He is the glue that binds the fragments of what once a whole. Darius, Anne breathed. You were not what I had in mind, hardly a solution I would have ever chosen, especially for him. But even I must at times accept the whims of fate as determined by my Father, the Creator. The figure came forward, wafting towards her, and as you shall affect the course of things, therefore I shall affect the course of you. The sleeve of the robe lifted, and a glow hand emerged. Anne jumped and looked down at herself. At a strange feeling curled in her abdomen, she covered her lower belly with her palms. You already love him, the female voice intoned. Do not try to talk yourself out of it, and your body is ready for the future. What are you? No questions, child. I shall not remind you again. There was a long moment of silence, and then Anne had a sudden conviction that she understood everything, a kind of universal awareness opening in her mind and heart, and yet she was totally confused. Do not talk yourself out of it. You are upon your destiny, child, and you shall carry within your womb the future queen. Oh God, Annie croaked. The destiny of the species shall be born from you, and then I shall welcome you into the Fae. So shall my proclaim, so shall it be. Although the figure had arrived gradually, it departed in a snap, the presence vanishing before her eyes. So, she's going to bear the queen. And so Darius comes home, and she asks him about his job, and they get close, and they're supposed to get closer, but Wellesley interrupts. We get all these interruptions by characters with no introduction. Because we're all supposed to have read all 20 of these she doesn't give introductions, which I guess is okay, because we all know who these people are. So I guess it's only someone new to the series. But this is supposed to be a prequel. We should get a little introduction, but that's okay. I didn't need it because I knew who these people were. But I think a person coming into the series brand new might want an introduction. Although, if you do it the long way and start with this one and not this one, but this is considered a prequel, that's why I started with it, and we start with the next book will be this one. So Anne goes to work the next day. She learns that Charlie, the coworker that had told her what the bosses were doing by giving her the money, he says, he had asked her to meet him last night, but she never did because she was with Darius. And she gets to her desk, and he had left a bunch of photos on her desk. So she takes the photos to the cops, and we don't hear anything else about it from the cops. So she has a date with Darius. They have peanut butter and jelly, delicious meal. He wants her to move in with him, and he's going to talk to her about what he is and who he is and what his society is. But Bruce breaks in. He's been turned into a lesser. He tells Annie what Darius is. She tries to kill Bruce, and he doesn't die because he doesn't die by human bullets. A confrontation, Darius ends up killing him, and Darius and her had just had a moment, and your queen is created. And then, of course, the Bruce thing happens, and she tells Darius to leave, unbeknownst to either one that she's with child at that point. So she goes into her office, and she tells the bosses she wants 50 grand, and they give it to her, and she quits her job. And the book ends with her in labor in the hospital. She goes back to St. Francis because the doctor there knows Darius and his kind of people, and he tells her that it's either her or the baby, so she dies and the baby lives. And the doctor is the one, and I didn't realize we didn't know this. Oh, well, actually, I guess we do know this. But the doctor convinces him to put the baby safe in one of the other homes, to keep her safe from the, think about it. Can you keep her safe in your world from the lessening society? It's much safer here on the other side. He thought of the two estranged young he had already lost to war and lied to himself. No, it isn't. Yes, it is, and I know what you are. I found out who you are. If the lessers discover a member of the Black Dagger Brotherhood has a young, they will find her and take her just to get to you. When you go to Retriever, they will kill you both after they make you watch your daughter die in a horrible way. And the doctor convinces him to give Beth up for adoption within their society, or actually human society. And we finish the story in here. I won't spoil the epilogue that just blew me away, because it blew me away. And because I've read most of all of these, but I don't remember the last couple. So I want to go through them all and then come back and read the last chapter again to know, because this doesn't happen. This last chapter is a brand new thing. And I want to go through the whole series before I can understand it again, because I wasn't aware this happened. So it's a brand new thing, and apparently, according to the book, it happens after all of these happen. So it'll be interesting. So please hit the like and subscribe. I hope you will enjoy my Black Dagger Brotherhood as we go through all of these books one by one by one. And my friend is going off again. She's always going off during podcasts. But please check out my daily podcast, all my shorts. Please check out Flashback Mondays, recap Star Trek Next Generation on Fridays, and If Then Fridays. And enjoy your book. Spoiler alert! Thank you.